something that our culture just absorbs from all kinds of areas, music and emotion and feeling. And on March the 12th, 1987, after spending 2 years in Great Britain, a music phenomenon came and became a part of our country. It was a musical that, when it opened, ended up being the third longest musical on Broadway, and the musical was called Les Miserables. Now, how many of you are not familiar with Les Mis? Raise your hand if you're not familiar with it. Please, I'm not going to embarrass you. You're not familiar with this, okay? How many of you then are familiar with this? Raise your hand if you are familiar with this. Okay, all right. A couple of years ago, I brought this illustration to this church, and they looked at me as if I was from a far planet. And so I've decided to bring a little culture to the Ozarks and talk about Les Miserables, because this story is a powerful story. Now, let me just tell you a couple of things for it. If you are under about 18 years of age, your parents should not let you see this, because it is very earthy, it is very gross, it is very it's just kind of a nasty little thing, because the title is called The Miserables. Okay? And so for those of you who grew up with a different kind of musical with, everything's up to date in Kansas City and all those happy little songs, this is not a musical like that. This is one of those where everybody dies, okay? And so you kind of feel bummed when you left. But this whole story is a great story and an illustration of what I want to talk about, because in the story it follows the two characters that really tell the story of really truth and grace and mercy and the law. And so I've picked out a couple of people that I think are going to help me with that. So Chris Barrett, I know that you would love to help me up on stage today. And Robert Langford, I know that you would love to help me as well today. And so because the story is told of these two guys, I'm sorry, Robert, you're going to stay awake today, at least for the first part of the sermon. And so after that, you can rest afterwards, okay? But this story is built around two different characters, and those two characters, if you'd stand over here, Rob, if you guys, don't team up together. Robert, stand over here, because I know. But you love me, though, right? I do. Okay, thank you very much. All right. Well, you're going to play the part of the good guy. Is that better? Okay, all right, good. So you get to be the good guy, and just so that you don't forget who you are, I've got a little sign for you, all right? And I spent a lot of time making the sign, because in this musical, it's built around two guys, and you get to be Jean Valjean. Okay, have you ever seen the musical?
I have.
Okay, have you ever seen a musical at all?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. All right, just checking. And you get to be the bad guy. Now, have you? He looks like a bad guy, doesn't he? Doesn't mean okay. And just ask your wife. Yeah, we know that. You get to be the character of Javert. Okay, Javert. Can you say that with me? Javert.
Javert.
Okay, very good. And here's the way the musical goes. Jean Valjean. You are a good guy. All right, and everything's going good in your life except your family is starving. And so you break into somebody's house to get some food. Okay, now that's something you would do, wouldn't it? I mean, if your family's starving, you would do that. You'd break people. It wouldn't be any big deal like that. Okay. All right. Well, you did that, and you got thrown in jail because of that. Okay, just for stealing some bread, you got thrown in jail. And you didn't think that was fair, and so instead of waiting for the 5 years that you're supposed to be in jail, you kept trying to escape. Okay, does that sound about like you trying to do that kind of? Okay. All right, and so you spent another 14 years in jail. So you've been in jail for 19 years. Okay? And your jailer is that little snotty-looking guy right there. Okay? Do you think you could take him? No, don't answer that. Okay, all right. Now, you're Javert. You are the good guy you're the police officer. Okay? You're like a fireman, so it's kind of the same kind of thing. So you're the guy, and you're making sure that everybody follows the rules and does what they're supposed to do. Okay? And so this guy, he keeps breaking out of jail, so you keep throwing him back into jail, okay? And so 19 years that happens, and finally it's your day to be released, okay? Your good behavior released, and you warn him that you now have to go check in because you're on parole, all right? And if you miss your parole, we're going to throw you back in jail, all right? So you have that little conversation. Go ahead and have that. Okay, good. And then after that happens, you leave, and you end up staying at the house of a priest, okay, for the night. I'll just pretend like I'm the priest, okay? And you get to spend the night at my house. It's kind of a stretch for me, but I'll go ahead and stretch in that. And I let you eat all the food, and you're feeling good about life, but you look at all of the silverware that I serve you with, and you're thinking, you know what? If I stole this, and I can take him, all right? Now, he can beat me up. If he takes that, then I'll be able to start a new life, and nobody will ever know. Okay? So that's exactly what you do. In the middle of the night, you steal my silver, and you go out, but you get caught. Not by Javert, but by some of his friends. Okay? Are you with me? This is difficult. I know. It's very difficult. All right, so everything. And so you come back to me, and the police say, hey, we know that this guy stole from you, and all you got to do is say, yes, we'll send him back to jail. But what I do is I say, you know what? He didn't steal that. I gave it to him. In fact, he didn't take all the things that I gave him, and I give him the rest of the silver that he couldn't carry and steal, and I give that to you. And because of that, something changes in your life. In fact, in the musical, there's really a conversion experience that Jean Valjean has, and he decides to go out and do good in the world. In fact, he does that. And for 9 years, things happen really well. You become a very important businessman, okay? And you've got this factory, and you've got hundreds of workers that are working for you. In fact, you've done such a good job, you're mayor of the town. Isn't that pretty cool? He's mayor of the town. And everything is going really well. And you're ruling good things, and you've lowered taxes, and you've increased the economy, and you've done all the wonderful things. And it's going really well for you. Except one day, Javert comes into town. And he doesn't recognize you. But he sees you do this great act of strength. Because somebody's got hurt, and they got this cart falling over them, and a big strong guy like you went out there and you helped him, and you saved this person's life, and you go, now wait a minute. That reminds me of a guy named Jean Valjean who was in jail with me, because I've only seen one person that could do that. But we've just captured a guy that we think is Jean Valjean. Were you listening at all what I was saying over here? Okay, all right. You look at me like, no, you're not with me. So you've got a guy in custody. This is just like when you're sitting out there, isn't it? It's just nothing happening. You've got this guy in custody that you think is Jean Valjean, but you look at him and go, well, maybe he's Jean Valjean, because you're about to put this guy in jail forever. And so you ask him. Here's what you're going to ask him. Ask him if he's Jean Valjean. Okay, ask him right now. Very good. Now, wait a minute. All right? Just like any good musical, that's when you break into song. This is good, isn't it? This one gets really good. Right? And I'm not going to make you sing. I'm not going to make you sing. I know. I don't know who's laughing at you like that. That's your wife laughing that loud, isn't it? Has she heard you sing? No, she's never heard you sing. Oh, that's Angie Daniels. That's not Camille. Okay. And just like in any great musical, you begin to sing. And the song that you sing is this question. The question is, who am I? Have you ever heard this song? You ever heard this song? Heard this song? The question is, who am I? Because if he answers that he's Jean Valjean, what's going to happen to him? He's going back to jail because he's broken his parole. But if you say that you're not Jean Valjean, then some other guy is going to go to jail all of his life because you didn't tell the truth. And so you're stuck there at that moment of wondering, who am I? Am I the guy that he thinks I was when I was in jail, or am I somebody different now? If you want to know the answer in the musical, you'll have to watch it or rent it, okay? Because I want you to thank these two guys for helping me today, because these are the last time they're going to be my friends. Thank you very much. I'm glad you didn't sing, yeah. We're not nearly as glad as we're glad that you didn't sing, Robert. But that question of who am I comes up lots of times in life. Now, the truth is, you and I are probably not going to be stopped by the police officer and be kind of trying to decide whether we should lie or not. Hopefully, that's not your situation. But for us in life, time after time after time, we have to answer the question, who am I? It really begins in junior high school or intermediate school, when your parents kind of let you go to school by yourself and they're not there all the time, and you have a choice to make based on all the things that people bring you. Whether you want to do this, or whether you're going to talk like that, or whether you're going to cheat, and you're going to have to ask yourself, who am I? Am I the kind of person that does that? Or am I the person who doesn't do that? It begins in intermediate school, answering this question of who am I? And then you have to answer this question again when you get to college. Because at college, nobody cares if you really go to class or not. And so you've got to decide whether or not you're going to pull your body out of bed at 8 o'clock on Monday and go to class, whether you're that kind of person. Or they're going to have all kinds of other, we would call them temptations, or all kind of other opportunities to do whatever you want to. In college, in fact, you can even select the classes that you want to take. You don't have to take everything that everybody does. And you begin to ask yourself, who am I in this grand scheme of life? And then you get to be middle-aged like I am. This year, it's going to be a tough year for me. You begin to pray for me already, because this year I turned 40, okay? Now, I know some of you have shoes that are 40 years of age. I understand that, and you're wearing them here. It's not a big deal to you, but to me, that's a big deal where you kind of stop in life and you kind of go, who am I? Who am I really? Am I really a pastor, preacher, or am I, more like the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys? Who am I? Who should I be? And what am I? Is this where I want to be? Is this what I've been doing? How's that going to work? And then I am told that after middle age, you come to a point where you retire from a job. And for men, this is especially difficult for men. But you walk away from a job, and now you've got to figure out, okay, who am I? I am no longer the boss. I'm no longer the worker. I'm no longer any of those things. And you try to figure that out. Who am I? And then after that, as you begin to look at your life and you have less life left than you had when you previously had, you look at that and you go back and you go, who am I as I face all of eternity? The truth is that you and I have to answer this question time and time and time again. Lose a job, have a broken relationship, have this big change, and you've got to ask yourself, who am I? And so what I want to do this morning is by looking at the Scriptures, because the Scriptures are the only solid guide to determine who we are, and see what the Scriptures tell us about who we are and what it encourages us and challenges us to do. Now, we're still in our series, the book of Romans, chapter 12. So if you've got your Bibles, I want you to join me there in Romans chapter 12, and today we come to about verse 6. And if you've not been here the last couple of weeks, you'll just need to kind of read the verses ahead or in front of where we are today and kind of read verses 1 through 5, because when we come to verse 6, here is what verse 6 says. It says that we have different gifts according to the grace given us. Here are the two things that I want you to know about who you are, about what the Bible says you are. There are two things that the Bible tells us. One of those, not in this passage, but generally, and that is this. Every one of us has been created in the image of God. And that's number one. And when you try to figure out who you are, and you come to a moment, whether you're going to take this thing that somebody's handing you, or you're going to be a part of this job, or you're going to do that, you've got to remind yourself, okay, who am I? Am I the person this way or that way? I'm a person who has been created by God. And because I've been created by God, the image of God rests in me, and therefore I have value. Simply because, not what I do, not who my parents are, not because of what my grades are, not because I'm good looking or I'm not good looking, not because I have a big car and a nice car or a nice house or any of those things. I am nothing in value of those. I am valuable because I have the image of God within me. I am created in the image of God. That is why we should protect life at all stages of life. And a person lying in a nursing home bed is just as alive and just as much bears the image of God as you and I do. And so also is that little baby in the womb of its mother has just as much life as you and I have, and we must protect that at all costs because the image of God is at stake. In addition to that, though, we who have trusted Christ, those of us who have asked for forgiveness of our sin, who are seeking to follow and seeking to be obedient to His ways, we have been gifted. All right, that's what this verse says, chapter 12, verse 6, that we, Paul is talking to the church, that we have different gifts. That means that every one of you in this room, if you have trusted Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, have been given a gift. And that gift we would call sometimes a spiritual gift. Now, the original language doesn't say spiritual gift. It says charismata, and what that means is that is a grace gift. We understand that word grace. It's used actually twice, one time with this charismata, and then again when it talks about the grace given us, obviously that word appears again. That means unmerited favor, meaning it's something that God has given us that we don't get a choice of. I've been sick the last couple of days, still fighting off some illness, and so if I'm not as beautiful as I normally am today, well, that's probably part of the reason. But because of that, I've been watching a little more television than I normally do. And there's this commercial, I don't even know what it's for, and it talks about this guy, and he's going to order a burger at a burger place, and he can't even get the order out, and they've already given him the burger. You know what I'm talking about? And they say, I didn't order that. And he's like, oh, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. That's what you ordered. And you kind of do that. Well, that's almost the kind of the way that your spiritual or your charismatic gift comes, because you get that God gives to you, and you don't choose it. Okay? You and I, for some reason, think that we can bargain with God. I don't understand why we continually think, because we come to God and say, hey, God, I'll trade you this for that. Right? If you do this, God, then I'll do that. And God just looks at us and like, you have nothing to bargain with. You know, you have nothing that I want, and you're going to try to work this little game with me. And sometimes we think that we can play these tricks, play these games with God, when we can't. And so what happens is God gives us a gift, and that gift is to be used to benefit the church. All right? You and I don't get to choose what that is. It's just given to us. Now, when it comes to spiritual gifts, let me just kind of take a quick survey. How many of you would say, Neil, that I know my spiritual gift? Would you raise your hand up strong and up bold, that you know your spiritual gift? Okay. It looks like that nobody's paying attention because you're doing that. Yeah, I kind of know that. Let me say that again. How many of you know, and just for the moment, we'll test everybody's deodorant, make sure it's working, but I want you to throw your hand up really high if you know what your spiritual gift is. Raise it, okay? All right, there are a lot of you that don't have your hands raised, which would mean that a lot of us don't know what our spiritual gift is. That may mean one of two things. Number one, you've not trusted Christ as your personal Lord and Savior and recognized that. Or number two, you have never been helped in that process. Now, sometimes our spiritual gift and our natural talent, sometimes we can get a little confused about what that is. Because, see, sometimes natural talents are similar to spiritual gifts. Let me kind of differentiate them this way very briefly. A natural talent is something that God has given you the ability to do so that you can earn a living or serve other people in this world. A natural talent is given to everybody as part of being the image of God in order for you to do something to provide for somebody else so that they'll be willing to pay you, okay? For instance, some of you may have this is natural talent, you may have the natural talent of being able to push the button on the machine that counts down how long the fries are supposed to be in the grease, okay? That may be your talent and the ability to go bing and pick up the fries, okay? That may be your natural talent, and people are willing to pay you for that talent, okay? We'll pay you for that talent. That is your ability as a natural talent. God, though, also, if you're a believer in Him, has given you a spiritual gift, and that spiritual gift could be a talent like that. It could be something different, but it is to benefit God's people. There is something that He does in that other people get benefited from spiritually, and not just other people, but the church. Okay, does that make sense? Natural talent is something given to help people in the world so that you can get by. Spiritual gift is something given to you so that you can help the church. Now, let me stop something that you're thinking already. When we think of church, we oftentimes think of Sunday morning, somewhere between 8 and noon. Okay? That's not the total encompassment of the church. This is just a little tiny sliver of church. Church is God's people living out His command throughout all of the world. That's what it is. And that happens much more on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday than Sunday morning. This is a rallying point for us as church. This is a time that we can encourage one another. This is the time that we might be able to learn something. But the church is supposed to be active out there, loving people to Christ, we say, and living the journey together. And every one of you has been given a spiritual gift to take and to use to benefit other people. You didn't get a choice in that. You didn't choose which one you wanted, but you're given that for the benefit of the church, God's people, and God's mission throughout the world. Now, some of you don't know what your spiritual gift is. And what we want to try to do is to help you as a congregation understand that. Now, first off, the Scripture gives us some listings of those. In Romans chapter 12 here, there's a listing of the spiritual gifts. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, there's another listing of spiritual gifts. In Ephesians chapter 4, there's another listing of spiritual gifts. In 1 Peter 4, I think, there's another listing. And so you can look at the Scriptures and see some of the listing of those, but I'm not sure that those are just the only ones that are out there. In fact, I think God has designed every one of us uniquely, differently, and has given us some things that we're to benefit others. So last year, what we did as a church is we had our small groups in the last winter, spring term go through some material called Place. And Place is a ministry that kind of helps people figure out who they are. They look at your personality, they look at your experiences, they look at your passions, they look at all those kind of things to kind of help you understand your spiritual giftedness and where your place is in service of God's kingdom. And we've got some books left over. They're at the information center, and I think that we paid like $15 for them. If you would like one of those books, we're just going to charge you $5 today. If you want to get one of those and look at it, I'm not selling them or anything like that. But if this is helpful for you, you do that. And then if you need some help getting plugged in or connected, contact us as a staff, and we'll be happy to sit down with you and help you in that process. Because if you've got a spiritual gift, you have an obligation. In fact, it is built upon you using your spiritual gift. And sometimes we reduce spiritual giftedness to being able to talk in front of a group of people, or to being able to sing, or to play an instrument, or to tell somebody where to park on the parking lot, or one of those things. And those are partially spiritual gifts, but you have spiritual gifts that you individually are created in the image of God, and you have a gift that God wants you to use in the service of His people. And if you don't know what that is, then guess what? You can't do what you're designed to do. Because He's got a purpose for you to be who you are. Now, go through this list with me. He goes on to say that if a man's gift is prophesying, let him use it in proportion to his faith. Now, before we get into the rest of this list, let me kind of make a cautionary statement here. When you and I today look at the word prophesying, we sometimes think that means fortune telling, okay? And that's not what this word means. This word does not mean that you're to go out there and be a fortune teller and telling the future of what's going to happen, right? You know, today if you knew whether there's going to be Packers or Bears, you'd be out there fortune telling, right? Okay? That's not what this means. It's going to be the Packers, by the way. But this is not what it means. Prophesying means proclaiming the gospel. It means communicating God's word to people. That's what prophesying means. In the Old Testament, it did mean this idea of future telling. It doesn't mean that in this particular context. And so what it means is if your gift is communicating the gospel, then let him do it in proportion to his faith. Now notice his faith there. In the original Greek, there's a definite article in front of faith. So it really means if a man's gift is telling the truth, speaking God's word to people, let him use it in proportion to not necessarily just his faith, but the faith, which means as you know God's word and you have that giftedness, you communicate that word to other people. All right? Here's the pattern he sets up. If a man's gift is prophesying, then what? Let him prophesy. If it is serving, let him serve. If it is teaching, let him teach. If it is encouraging, let him encourage. If it's contributing to the needs of others, let him give generously. If it is leadership, let him govern diligently. If it's showing mercy, let him do it cheerfully. Here's what I think that means. We could spend time going through each one of those and looking at the gift and trying to discern all those things, but here's what I think it means. Once you understand how you're gifted, you are to do that gift. Okay? The sermon title today, I think, was on the back, and it said to embrace yourself. What this means is once you understand what your gift is, you have an obligation and responsibility to go and do that. But so many times, you and I become fixated on a gift that we do not have. And we get so frustrated and so grumpy that somebody else has a gift that we don't have, that either we try to have that gift and we don't, or we get so upset that we don't use our gift. For instance, I really wish that I could sing. I mean, if there's something that I could do, I would love to sing. My wife sings beautifully. We have great musicians that sing beautifully. And while I can carry a tune, I need a pretty large bucket to do that with, okay? And even though I don't offend the people beside me necessarily when I sing, no one's going to pay me $49.99 to hear me sing. And I wish that I could be the Jean Valjeans out there and stand and sing and make people be moved emotionally, but I can't do that. So I've got a choice. I can go around doing that and move people with my musicianship, that move them in a wrong direction, or like all those people on American Idol who get out there, who does this, or I can say, you know what, that's not me, but this is the spiritual gift, and so I'm going to embrace that. Does that make sense to you? Because, see, the truth is that sometimes those don't necessarily line up. Let me just, I've got just a couple of minutes here. Let me just be a little honest with you. There are some days where I look at what I do as a pastor, and I go, I stink at this. And I look at this, and just being real honest with you, that I am not what a pastor ought to be. A pastor ought to be a friendly, nice person. Don't you think? I mean, don't you want a pastor who's friendly and nice and encouraging and helpful to people? I am not that. I'm just not. I'm a person who's moved by ideas, and I'm moved by organizations, and I'm moved by moving people ahead in that process, but I don't always look at individuals. And I know some of you will see me at the Recplex, and I'm just out and I'm yelling like a fool. I know that, especially at the referees oftentimes. Where's Amy's right over there. Sometimes I'm yelling at the referees, and I know it's just not so I don't even go anymore. I just sit at home, and I can't do that because it hurts. But see, I'm not a real friendly person, and sometimes you'll see me at the Recplex, and you'll get, hey, hi, and I'll say, hi, and that's it. A pastor really ought to stand there with you and say, oh, what's going on in your life? May the Lord bless you. How can I pray for you? How's your great-grandmother doing with her bursitis? And how's that looking, that kind of stuff? That's what a pastor really ought to do, because that's what I want a pastor to do. But I don't do that. I can't do that. That's not the way that I'm wired. So I have to hire nice people around me, like John King, who will care about you and those kind of things, because I'm just not that way. And I'm sorry that I'm not. And I keep asking God, are you sure you want me to be doing this? He's like, yes, you're supposed to be doing this, because I feel like I'm not what I'm supposed to be. And the truth is that for many of us, when God asks us to do things, we're always going to feel that way, aren't we? I mean, most of us never feel completely prepared for what God has called us to do, and yet He calls us to do that because the benefit's not going to be what we do, it's going to be what He adds to what we do. You see that? It's not the result that we get. The spiritual gift actually is, I think, in many ways, is the response that God gets out of our sorry little efforts in the first place. And maybe that distinguishes talent versus spiritual gift, to see if the production that you get out, excuse me, if you get the production out of what you put in is bigger than what you could ever take credit for yourself. So here's the deal. Whatever you've been gifted to do, go and do it. Embrace that. And say, you know what? I have a spiritual gift with little children, and God somehow uses me to impact their lives, but I don't even like them. Okay? Well, here's the deal. God's spiritually blessing you, so you better be around little kids. Okay? And the fact that you don't like them, maybe that's what God is burning out of you, that's you and not Him. Well, I got quiet after that one. Did I need to say that one again? Somebody listening to me, or is it just everybody got bored at this point? Because what the calling is not for us to do just what we're comfortable with and what we feel good about, but to do what we've been designed to do, and God will add the blessing to that. Now, here's the challenge sometimes. Sometimes that spiritual gift we can make a living off of. If you're a teacher and you've been spiritually gifted the ability to teach, you might be able to go out in this world and make a living on teaching. But there are some spiritual gifts that you may not have enough talent, or the world doesn't give you enough talent to get paid to do that, so you'll have to practice that spiritual gift in the church. Here's what I mean. It is difficult to raise a family on a teacher's salary, you know. I know they get 2 months off vacation. I understand all that. But it is difficult sometimes to do that. And so some people have had to say, you know what, my gift is teaching, but I can't make a living on that. But I know that's not just a talent, that's a spiritual gift, so I'm going to take my teaching in the church. Does that make sense? Do you understand that? Or maybe you're a great leader and you're in a job where you don't get to lead anybody. But maybe within the church you have an opportunity to be a leader in something, lead people toward a movement or something that's going to be important in the kingdom. It could be that. So here's the thing. I got to wrap up. My time's gone, as it always is. Are you stuck someplace? That's the question. See, the question is, are you stuck, meaning that you don't know what your spiritual gift is? And you've just been a believer and you think you have the spiritual gift of sitting in a pew. That is not a spiritual gift, okay? That's your obligation, that's your duty, but that's not a spiritual gift to come in and sit down and go, ta-da, my spiritual gift. Everybody see this? Here's I am, right? That's not a spiritual gift. And so if you have a relationship with Christ, He is calling you because He has gifted you to do something for Him. And you have been uniquely gifted in a way that nobody else has to be obedient to that. And it's not coming and sitting and listening to me. That takes some talent, I know. That takes perseverance, I understand that. But it's not a gift. And so if you're following Christ, just coming in and showing up is not enough. So you've got to discover what that is. Now, if you don't know what that is, I've given you one resource there, that place material. But it could be that you don't have a gift because you've not trusted Him as your Savior, as your personal Lord. That you're not